On a chilly December morning in New York City, James, a middle-aged millionaire, was rushing to a business meeting when he noticed a young girl huddled on the sidewalk, shivering in worn-out clothes. Her name was Lily, and her situation tugged at James' heartstrings, a rare moment of empathy piercing through his usual armor of stoicism. Despite his busy schedule, James decided to help her, taking her to his warm, luxurious apartment and providing her with a meal. As James listened to Lily's heartbreaking story of abandonment and loss, he was reminded of his painful past, feeling a deep, emotional connection to her. Determined to make a difference, he promised to help Lily find her mother and confront his unresolved issues along the way. What started as an act of kindness transformed into a journey of self-discovery and redemption for James. He ventured into the city's underbelly, locating Lily's estranged mother, Sarah, who was struggling with her regrets and hardships. Together, they began the difficult process of rebuilding their fractured family, guided by the shared goal of offering Lily the love and stability she desperately needed. This story is not just about a millionaire's moment of compassion, but also about the profound impact of facing one's past and the possibility of healing through helping others. If you are not subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. Before we dive into this story, please let me know in the comments where you're watching from. On a frigid December morning, New York City lay beneath a delicate shroud of frost, transforming the streets into a glistening wonderland of shimmering ice. The usually vibrant cityscape was subdued, with its bustling traffic and throngs of people feeling subdued under the relentless chill. The icy wind howled through the streets, sending shivers down the spines of those braving the elements, making every step outside a challenge. James, a prosperous middle-aged businessman, was hastening to a significant meeting that demanded his full attention. His mind was entirely consumed by the intricate web of numbers and high-stakes deals awaiting discussion. Known for his unwavering determination and laser focus, James was a man who, despite his considerable wealth and success, carried a perpetually serious expression, as though an invisible weight of responsibility pressed heavily upon his shoulders. As James navigated the crowded intersection downtown, his gaze was unexpectedly drawn to a scene that stopped him in his tracks. A young girl, seemingly frail and wrapped in clothing that had seen better days, was seated on the cold pavement, clutching a small, worn plastic cup. Her large, weary eyes, though dulled by the harshness of her circumstances, looked up at the passing crowd with a profound mixture of desperation and resignation. At that moment, James, who was usually indifferent to the world's suffering, felt an unfamiliar tightness in his chest, a pang of discomfort that tugged at his comfortings. Despite his instinct to avert his eyes and continue on his way, something about the sight of this young girl held him in place. He found himself slowing down, drawn to her plight by an inexplicable and powerful impulse. He came to a halt right in front of her, his steps faltering as if caught in the grip of an invisible force. Hello, James began, his voice emerging softer and more tentative than he had anticipated. What's your name? The girl raised her gaze cautiously, her voice barely rising above a whisper amid the city's din. Lily, sir, she replied, her tone laden with a shyness that spoke volumes of her vulnerability. A profound wave of compassion swept over James, an emotion so intense and unfamiliar that it left him momentarily disoriented. He had always prided himself on his logical, reasoned approach to life, immune to the whims of sentiment. Yet on this bitterly cold morning, something within him shifted profoundly. The stark reality of Lily's plight struck a chord deep within his soul, evoking memories and emotions he had long buried beneath layers of self-imposed detachment. If you're still tuned into this video and find the story inspiring, drop a 1 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. What are you doing out here, Lily? He asked gently, bracing himself for the harsh truth that he knew would mirror the cruel chill of the morning air. I'm cold and hungry, Lily responded, her voice faltering as she looked down, a mixture of shame and sorrow evident in her posture. Her admission was a stark reminder of the harsh reality she faced, a reality that James had been shielded from by his privileged life. James felt an overwhelming sense of paralysis as he stood there, struck by the raw fragility of Lily's situation. Her plight mirrored something he had tried hard to forget, a painful past, or a lost sense of empathy he had suppressed over the years. Without a second thought, driven by a sudden, instinctive surge of kindness, he crouched down beside her, his heart pounding with a newfound sense of urgency. Come with me, he offered softly, extending his hand toward her. Let's find a place where you can warm up, and I'll make sure you get something to eat. Lily hesitated, her trust in the world eroded by a lifetime of empty promises and fleeting gestures of kindness. Yet there was something in James' voice, sincerity and gentleness that sparked a glimmer of hope in this brook. Slowly she reached out, taking his hand with a cautious but hopeful gesture. With gentle care, James helped her to her feet, his own heart swelling with a mixture of determination and tenderness. As they walked through the city streets, James found himself grappling with a profound sense of bewilderment. A man whose life had been governed by rigid schedules and unyielding commitments was now setting aside his priorities to assist a stranger in need. Every step they took together seemed to challenge the very essence of his meticulously structured existence. And yet, as he glanced down at Lily, he realized that this spontaneous act of compassion was not just a deviation from his routine, but a profound shift in his understanding of what truly mattered. In that moment, James knew that something far more significant than his daily responsibilities was guiding him, a revelation that would linger long after this cold December morning had passed. They arrived at James' opulent apartment, a modern, sprawling space that had always felt cold and uninviting despite its grandeur. As Lily stepped inside, her eyes widened in awe and disbelief at the sheer size and luxury of the place. James led her into the expansive living room, where he promptly turned on the heater to chase away the biting cold that still clung to her. He wrapped her in a plush, soft blanket, its warmth a stark contrast to the frigid air she had been enduring. "Make yourself comfortable," James said, his voice carrying an unexpected gentleness. "I'll prepare something for you to eat." With that, he headed to the kitchen, where he set about preparing a modest meal. As he worked, James felt a stirring within him, an unfamiliar and unsettling emotion that he struggled to name. The presence of this young girl, so vulnerable and fragile, seemed to stir up long-buried memories and feelings he had pushed deep into the recesses of his mind. When he returned to the living room, he found Lily nestled in the blanket, her gaze fixed on the window with a distant, contemplative look. "Here you go," James said softly, offering her the plate of food. "Eat slowly and take your time. You're safe here now." Lily accepted the plate with trembling hands, her hunger evident in her eager, yet cautious movements. As she began to eat, James settled into a nearby chair, watching her in silence. He was eager to learn more about her, to understand how such a young soul had ended up in such a dire situation. "Where are your parents?" Lily, he asked, his tone as gentle as he could manage, hoping to offer some comfort while seeking answers. For a moment, Lily paused, her eyes brimming with tears that she struggled to hold back. She looked away, her small frame shaking slightly as she fought to maintain her composure. "My dad, he left me here in the city," she said, her voice breaking. "He and my mom had a huge fight, and he just walked out on us." Her voice cracked further, and she clutched the blanket around her more tightly, as if it could shield her from the pain of her memories. James felt a profound ache in his heart. The anguish in Lily's words reverberated through him, stirring up echoes of his past that he had long tried to forget. He saw in her eyes a reflection of his childhood fears and helplessness. Without fully understanding why, he felt a deep connection to her struggle. "You're not alone anymore, Lily," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm here to help you." What James couldn't foresee was that this simple act of kindness was about to set in motion a series of events that would transform his life in ways he could never have anticipated. As the warmth of James' apartment gradually seeped into Lily's cold, shivering body, she began to relax for the first time since they had met. She finished her meal, and James observed the subtle changes in her demeanor. Despite the comfort he had provided, there was a deep-seated sadness in her eyes, an echo of suffering that seemed far too heavy for someone so young. "Do you feel better now?" James asked softly, careful not to press her too much. Lily nodded slowly, her gaze still cast downward. "Yes, sir. Thank you for everything." James felt a pang of discomfort at the formality of her address. It was as though she was trying to keep a distance, building a barrier to protect herself from the harshness she had endured. He leaned forward slightly, his voice soothing as he spoke. "You don't need to call me Sir Lily. My name is James. You can talk to me as you would to a friend. I'm here to help you." Lily hesitated, her small hands clutching the edges of the blanket tightly, as if it were her last line of defense. It was clear she was struggling with whether to open up or remain guarded. After a long pause, she took a deep breath and began to share her story. "It's been really hard since my dad left," she began, her voice barely more than a whisper. "He and my mom fought all the time. I didn't understand everything they argued about, but I knew it was bad. One night, the fight was terrible. I heard my mom cry, and then he left us. He took me with him when he left. But after a few days in the city, he just abandoned me." As James listened to her story, his heart clenched with empathy. The sense of abandonment and fear in her voice resonated deeply with him, evoking memories of his childhood. He recalled the harsh words and unyielding expectations of his father, memories he had tried to suppress. Pushing these thoughts aside, James focused on Lily, determined to offer her the support and care she so desperately needed. "And your mom?" he asked gently, trying to understand more about her situation. Lily shook her head, her eyes welling up with tears that began to streak down her cheeks. "I don't know where she is," she whispered, her voice trembling. "My dad wouldn't let me talk to her. He told me she didn't care about me anymore, but I couldn't believe that. I don't want to believe him." James leaned back, his mind reeling as he absorbed the gravity of Lily's situation. This was no mere case of a lost child. It was a heart-wrenching story of abandonment and betrayal from those she should have been able to rely on for love and security. "I'm so deeply sorry, Lily," he said softly, his voice heavy with empathy. "No one should have to endure what you've been through." Lily wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, the gesture revealing the raw vulnerability she had been trying to hide. "It's not your fault," she said quietly. "You've been incredibly kind to me. I don't know why you're helping me, but I'm grateful." James managed a faint smile, though it was tinged with sadness. "I'm helping you because you deserve it, Lily. You deserve to feel safe and cared for. I promise I'll do everything I can to make sure you're okay." The room fell into a contemplative silence, the only sound the gentle hum of the heater. Lily gazed at James, her eyes searching his face with a mix of hope and wariness. Whatever she saw there seemed to reassure her, as she finally nodded, a tentative, hopeful smile breaking through her tears. If you're still tuned into this video and find the story inspiring, drop a 2 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. "Okay," she whispered, her voice carrying a note of cautious optimism. James felt a powerful surge of emotion, a blend of relief and determination. He had made a promise to Lily, and he was resolute in his commitment to keep it. Yet, as he observed her curled up on the couch, a new realization began to take shape in his mind. He couldn't merely provide temporary comfort. He needed to delve deeper, to find her mother and uncover the truth behind the family's turmoil. Only then could he offer Lily the genuine safety and stability she so desperately needed. Despite the clarity of his new goal, James couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that he was about to uncover complexities far more painful than he had anticipated. Still, he knew that retreat was not an option. He had already been drawn into Lily's world, and there was no turning back. "Lily," he said gently, breaking the silence, "I'm going to help you find your mom. We'll face this together, okay?" Lily's eyes widened with a mixture of fear and hope. "Do you think we can find her?" James nodded, his voice firm and reassuring. "I do, and I won't stop until we do." As he spoke, a profound sense of resolve settled over James. This was no longer merely about aiding a young girl in need. It was about confronting the shadows of his past and finding a way to heal long-festering wounds. In helping Lily, he might also discover a path to his redemption. The night descended upon New York City, the city's usual hustle and bustle fading into a quieter, more subdued atmosphere. In James' apartment, the scene was markedly different. Lily had fallen into a peaceful slumber on the couch, her small frame cocooned under the blanket. Her breathing was steady, yet even in sleep, the trace of sadness remained etched on her face, tugging at James' heartstrings. James watched her for a moment before quietly rising and walking over to the window. The city lights twinkled below, but his thoughts were far removed from business or success. His focus was entirely on Lily and the journey that lay ahead. As hours passed, James found himself pacing the room, his mind a whirl of memories and reflections. The arguments with his father, the times he had wanted to assert himself but had lacked the courage, and the fear that had paralyzed him. One memory in particular stood out vividly, a night that had haunted him for years. At 12 years old, James had been sitting at the dinner table with his parents. His father had been extolling the virtues of ruthless business tactics, emphasizing how James would one day have to take over the family business and make sacrifices. James had listened in silence until his father's words struck a nerve. "You have to be ruthless in this world," James, his father, had said. "Compassion is a weakness. If you want to succeed, you can't let your emotions get in the way." James had looked up then, feeling something inside him snap. "But what if I don't want to be like you?" he had blurted out, his voice quivering with a mix of fear and defiance. The room had fallen into a heavy silence. His father's expression had hardened, and after a tense pause, he had set down his fork and knife, folding his hands neatly on the table. "Excuse me," his father had said, his voice dangerously calm, leaving James to grapple with the weight of his words and the sting of his father's disappointment. James had known from the moment he'd spoken his defiant words to his father that he couldn't undo the damage. Standing his ground at that dinner table had felt like a monumental act of rebellion, but it had come with a heavy price. His father's cold dismissal and the harsh label of weak had left a deep scar, shaping every choice James had made since then. He had vowed to never appear vulnerable, to never let anyone see his cracks. But as he looked at Lily, he realized that in guarding himself, he had also isolated his heart, keeping out not just others but his true self. With the weight of these realizations pressing on him, James took a deep breath and chose not to push the memories away. Confronting his past was essential if he was to help Lily with hers. As the first light of dawn began to filter through the windows, James felt a resolve settle within him. He would find Lily's mother and face his demons. He had allowed the past to control him for too long. It was time to reclaim his narrative. He walked over to Lily, gently tucking the blanket around her to keep her warm. She stirred slightly and murmured something in her sleep. James watched her for a moment, his heart heavy with mixed emotions, sorrow, hope, and a steely determination. "Sleep well, Lily," he whispered. "Things are going to get better, I promise." As he turned away, ready to confront the day's challenges, James couldn't shake the thought that in helping Lily, he might also find the peace he had long been seeking. The early morning sun cast a soft golden hue over New York City, but James barely noticed the beauty as he navigated the quiet streets. His thoughts were solely on the task ahead, finding Lily's mother. He had spent the morning making calls, leveraging his extensive network to track down any information about Sarah, the woman from his distant past. Revisiting those old memories was strange, but James knew it was necessary. Lily's future depended on it. His search led him to a small, dilapidated neighborhood on the outskirts of the city. The buildings were old and peeling, the streets imbued with the quiet hum of a community that had seen better days. Arriving at the address, he had been given a modest apartment building with rusted fire escapes and grimy windows. James paused at the entrance, gathering his resolve. Despite his experience in facing corporate giants and high-stakes negotiations, this felt different. This was personal. He pushed open the door and ascended the creaking stairs to the second floor. Finding apartment 2 billion, he knocked softly, calling out, "Sarah, are you there?" There was a moment of silence before the door creaked open, revealing Sarah. She looked as though life had taken its toll on her. Her hair was disheveled, her clothes worn, and her eyes held a deep sadness that seemed to have settled there long ago. "James," she asked, her voice a mix of surprise and confusion. What are you doing here?" James stepped forward, his heart racing. Despite the years that had passed, Sarah was unmistakably the same girl he had once known, though time had not been kind to her. "I'm here about Lily," James said gently but firmly. "She's in trouble, Sarah. She needs you." Sarah's face paled at the mention of Lily. She opened the door wider, inviting James inside. The apartment was small and sparsely furnished, revealing a life of hardship. James could see the exhaustion and struggle etched into every corner of the room and every movement Sarah made. She's okay?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. I thought she was with her father." James nodded, his expression serious. "She was, but he abandoned her. Left her on the streets with nothing. I found her begging for food yesterday. She needs her mother." Sarah sank into a chair, her face a mask of guilt and anguish. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I didn't know he would do that. I thought he would take care of her, but I should have known better." James watched her closely, sensing both her regret and a flicker of hope. He needed to reassure her, to give her a chance to make things right. "Sarah," he said quietly, taking the seat across from her, "I know things have been tough for you, but Lily needs you now more than ever. She's been through so much and she's scared. She needs to know she's not alone, that she still has someone who loves her." Tears filled Sarah's eyes as she looked at James. "I've made so many mistakes," she said, her voice breaking. "I thought I was doing what was best for her, but I was wrong. So wrong." James reached out, gently taking her hand in his. "It's not too late, Sarah. You can still be there for her. We can find a way to make things right." Sarah stared at their joined hands, lost in thought. before nodding slowly. "You're right," she whispered. "I have to do this for Lily." James felt a wave of relief wash over him. The journey ahead would be difficult. Nothing about this situation was easy, but at least now he knew Sarah was willing to try. And that, he hoped, would be the beginning of healing for both Lily and Sarah. The revelation hung in the air, heavy and transformative. James felt as if he were standing on the precipice of a cliff, the world shifting beneath his feet. The weight of Sarah's words pressed down on him, the realization that Lily was his daughter overwhelming him with a cascade of emotions. His gaze met Lily's, her tear-streaked face a mirror of confusion and vulnerability. She had just been reunited with her mother, only to have this new, unimaginable truth thrust upon her. James saw the uncertainty in her eyes, the unspoken questions that lingered in the space between them. The very foundation of his understanding had been upended, and he was left grappling with a new, uncharted reality. James swallowed hard, trying to steady his voice as he spoke. "Lily," he began, taking a tentative step toward her, "I didn't know. I had no idea." His words felt inadequate, like a flimsy shield against the storm of emotions surging inside him. Lily looked at him with a mixture of hope and skepticism, her small voice trembling as she asked, "Is it true? Are you my dad?" The simplicity of the question struck James deeply, making the enormity of the situation hit him all the more. James nodded, his own eyes brimming with tears. "Yes, Lily. I'm your father." He moved closer, his heart aching with a longing to comfort her, to bridge the chasm that had so abruptly opened between them. "I'm so sorry for everything. I never knew, and I never meant to hurt you." Sarah's grip on Lily's hand tightened, her voice filled with both sorrow and determination. "I should have told you sooner, James. I was scared and ashamed. But now, seeing you here, I realize how wrong I was to keep this from you." James glanced at Sarah, seeing the depth of her regret. "Sarah, we both made mistakes. But right now the most important thing is Lily. She needs us to be here for her, to support her, and help her understand what's happened." Lily's gaze flickered between her parents, the confusion slowly giving way to a tentative trust. "I don't know what to say," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I'm scared." James knelt in front of her, his eyes soft with empathy. "It's okay to be scared. We'll figure this out together. You don't have to go through this alone." Sarah knelt beside James, her hand gently stroking Lily's hair. "We're here now, Lily, and we'll do everything we can to make things right." As the three of them sat together in the dim light of the apartment, the initial shock began to settle into something more profound, a tentative hope for reconciliation and healing. James could feel the weight of responsibility on his shoulders, the challenge of bridging the gap that time and secrets had created. But at this moment, with Lily and Sarah by his side, he also felt a glimmer of something he hadn't allowed himself to hope for, a chance at a new beginning, however uncertain. The apartment was quiet again, but this time it was a quiet filled with potential, with the possibility of rebuilding and rediscovering the connections that had been lost. James reached out and took Lily's hand, then Sarah's, creating a fragile but real bond between them. They were all still hurting, still uncertain of what the future held, but they were united in their commitment to face it together. As they sat in that quiet space, surrounded by the soft hum of the city outside, James realized that he was no longer just an observer in Lily's life. He was a part of it now, for better or for worse, and he was determined to make it count. The revelation had brought James a profound sense of clarity and purpose, but it also exposed unresolved feelings and challenges he had long avoided. With Lily now in his life, the need to reconcile his past and face his father became all the more urgent. The confrontation with his father was not just about seeking closure, it was about freeing himself from a legacy of bitterness and expectations that had haunted him for years. James spent the next few days navigating the turbulent waters of his new responsibilities as a father. Every moment with Lily was a reminder of the depth of his commitment to her, a commitment that extended beyond the immediate emotional support. He needed to build a stable, loving environment for her, and that meant addressing not only his internal struggles but also the relationships that had shaped him. Finally, the day came when James felt ready to face his father. It was a day filled with apprehension and resolve. He had spent hours preparing himself mentally, recalling all the reasons he had avoided this confrontation for so long. He knew he couldn't go into it with anger or blame. He had to approach it with a calm determination to seek understanding and closure. James drove to his father's house with a mixture of fear and anticipation. Each mile seemed to stretch out, amplifying his anxiety. He remembered the stern, critical man who had always demanded perfection and had little patience for mistakes. The thought of facing him now, after all these years was daunting. When he arrived and saw the familiar house, a flood of memories washed over him. The arguments, the silent dinners, the disappointment in his father's eyes, all of it came rushing back. He took a deep breath and walked up to the door, his heart pounding. After a moment of hesitation, he knocked. The door creaked open, revealing his father. The older man's face was lined with age and weariness, but his eyes were still sharp, a mirror of the judgment James remembered so well. "James," his father said, his voice gruff but with a hint of surprise. "What brings you here?" James swallowed hard, fighting to keep his voice steady. "I need to talk to you, Dad. It's important." If you're still tuned into this video and find the story inspiring, drop a 3 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. His father stepped aside, allowing James to enter. The familiar smell of the old house, the dusty furniture, and the worn-out family photos evoked a wave of nostalgia and discomfort. They sat down in the living room, the silence between them heavy with unspoken words. James began, "I've come to talk about the past, about how you raised me and the impact it's had on my life." His father looked at him with a mixture of curiosity and guardedness. "What's this about, James? Haven't we already gone over this?" James shook his head. "No, we haven't. Not really. I've come to realize that I need to confront these issues. I have a daughter now, and I want to be a better father to her than you were to me. But to do that, I need to understand and come to terms with my past." There was a moment of silence as his father absorbed James's words. The older man's expression softened slightly, though he still looked wary. "You've always been one to avoid confrontation. I didn't expect you to come here to talk about feelings." James took a deep breath, his voice steadying. "I'm here because I need to understand why things were the way they were. I need to let go of the anger and disappointment I've carried for so long, and I need you to acknowledge it, even if it's uncomfortable." His father shifted in his seat, clearly struggling with the request. "You know I did what I thought was best. I wanted you to succeed, to be strong." "I know," James replied softly, "but what I needed was not just strength. I needed support, understanding, and love. I needed to know that I wasn't alone in my struggles." For the first time, James saw a flicker of regret in his father's eyes. The silence between them stretched out as the older man considered his son's words. Finally, he spoke, his voice quiet and strained. "I didn't always show it, but I did care. Maybe I didn't always know how to express it, but I wanted you to be the best." James nodded, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. "I know you cared. But it's not just about what you did or didn't do. It's about the way it affected me, and now it's affecting how I'm trying to be a father myself." His father looked away, his gaze falling on a faded photograph on the mantel. "I suppose there's a lot I've missed by not being more involved in your life." James felt a pang of sympathy for the old man, recognizing the vulnerability beneath his hardened exterior. "It's never too late to change. I'm trying to be better for Lily. I hope that, in some way, this can help us both move forward." There was a long pause before his father finally met his eyes again. "I suppose there's no harm in trying. I'm not sure how much good I can do, but if you're willing to give it a chance, maybe we both can find a way to make things right." James nodded, feeling a glimmer of hope. "That's all I'm asking for. A chance to understand, to heal, and to move forward. For both of us." As James left his father's house, he felt a sense of tentative peace. The conversation had not resolved all the issues or healed all the wounds, but it was a start. It was a step toward confronting the past and forging a path to a better future. The road ahead with Lily and Sarah would be filled with challenges, but James felt more prepared to face them now. He had confronted his past and found a new sense of purpose. For the first time in a long time, he felt like he was heading in the right direction toward a future where he could be the father he wanted to be and build a family grounded in love and understanding. James felt a strange mix of relief and disbelief as his father's words sank in. The years of pain and frustration seemed to echo in the silence that followed. It was as if a long-forgotten door had been creaked open, revealing a sliver of the humanity behind the stern facade. The old wounds hadn't completely healed, but the acknowledgement of his father's mistakes was a step toward closure, a chance to finally move forward. "I appreciate you saying that," James replied, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. "It's been a long time coming." His father looked at him with a mixture of resignation and respect. "I suppose it has. I didn't always know how to express it, but I'm proud of what you've achieved. And despite everything, I'm glad to see you found a way to build something meaningful." James nodded, a lump forming in his throat. "I'm doing my best to make things right for myself and my daughter. I want her to know love and security, not the constant pressure to meet impossible standards." His father's gaze softened, and he took a deep breath, as if releasing a long-held breath. "I suppose there's not much left to say. You're right. The past can't be changed, but perhaps there's still a chance to mend what's left." James offered a small, appreciative smile. "Thank you. It means a lot to hear you say that." The conversation drifted into a quieter, more reflective space. They spoke of neutral topics, about the changes in the family estate, and some of the old acquaintances James had long lost touch with. It was a tentative reconnection, a delicate dance between old grievances and new possibilities. As James prepared to leave, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The conversation with his father had been difficult and emotional, but it had also been a necessary step in his journey of healing. He had faced his past, confronted his deepest fears, and emerged with a clearer vision of the future he wanted to build. James walked back to his car, the weight of the day still pressing on him but tempered with a sense of resolution. He knew the path ahead would not be without its challenges, but he felt a bit lighter, as if a burden had been lifted. When he returned to Sarah and Lily, their laughter still echoed through the apartment, a reminder of the new life he was striving to protect and nurture. Seeing them, he felt a renewed commitment to creating a home filled with love and understanding. He was determined to be the father and partner they deserved, to offer them the warmth and support that had been so lacking in his upbringing. As he joined Sarah and Lily, he felt a profound sense of gratitude. The journey to this point had been fraught with difficulties, but it had led him to a place where he could begin to build something better, a family grounded in genuine connection and unconditional love. The future was uncertain, but with the lessons learned from the past and the hope of a brighter tomorrow, James was ready to face whatever came next, armed with the strength and resolve to make a positive difference in the lives of those he loved most. For the first time in his life, James experienced a profound and transformative sense of liberation. It was as though a heavy, oppressive veil that had long shrouded his existence was finally lifting, revealing a clear and bright horizon. He had spent years under the imposing shadow of his father's expectations, struggling to conform to a vision that never truly felt like his own. But now, for the very first time, James felt a liberating surge of self-awareness and freedom. He realized that he was no longer bound by the chains of his father's influence. He wasn't the person his father had tried so hard to shape him into. He was something entirely different, something far more genuine and authentic. He was evolving into a father who would stand as a fierce protector for his daughter, dedicating every ounce of his strength, love, and devotion to her safety and happiness. With a quiet resolve, James turned and left the study, each step away from that room feeling like a release from an invisible burden. The weight on his shoulders, which had seemed so immense and immovable, felt lighter with every stride he took. The act of confronting his past had been a grueling and emotionally charged journey, facing the very person who had so profoundly shaped his life's trajectory. Yet, with each step he took away from that moment, James felt an exhilarating and empowering sense of freedom, an affirmation that he was now free to move forward and embrace the future he had always yearned for. As he drove back to his apartment, the journey felt like a return to a place of peace and warmth, a haven where he could focus on what truly mattered. The road ahead seemed clearer, illuminated by the promise of new beginnings. He was heading back to Lily and Sarah, the anchors of his new life, and the sense of tranquility that washed over him was both soothing and profound. He had done what was necessary to confront his past, and now he was ready to focus on the future. He envisioned a future filled with love, security, and fulfillment with his daughter and the woman who had once held a special place in his heart. The moment James walked through the door of his apartment, he was greeted by Lily's radiant smile, a beacon of pure, unadulterated joy. Her face lit up as she ran toward him, her enthusiasm and affection palpable. James scooped her up into his arms, holding her close as if to savor every precious moment of their embrace. In that intimate and heartfelt moment, he felt an overwhelming sense of belonging and rightness, as though he had finally arrived at the place he was always meant to be. It was a profound and deeply emotional realization, one that brought him immense comfort and satisfaction. "We're going to be okay," he whispered, the words flowing from his heart with a sincerity that was both reassuring and profound. "We're going to be just fine." For the first time in a long while, those words resonated with a genuine sense of hope and belief. He truly felt that despite the challenges they had faced, they were on the brink of a new chapter filled with promise and potential. However, The days following the intense confrontation with Lily's former guardian were tinged with an unsettling calm. Despite the apparent peace, James could not shake the gnawing sense of anxiety that lingered in the background. The man's ominous threat, "You haven't seen the last of me," reverberated through his thoughts, a constant reminder that the danger was still looming on the horizon. It was a chilling and persistent echo that fueled his resolve to protect his family at all costs. Rather than letting fear paralyze him, James channeled it into an unwavering determination to ensure Lily and Sarah's safety. He undertook a meticulous and comprehensive approach to fortifying their home. New locks were installed on every door. Security cameras were strategically placed to monitor their surroundings, and he reached out to a lawyer to begin the process of obtaining a restraining order. His dedication to their safety was unwavering each night. He conducted a thorough check of the windows and alarm system, leaving nothing to chance. It was a routine born of necessity and a profound commitment to his family's well-being. But James knew that physical security alone was not enough. Lily's emotional state was equally crucial. The confrontation had deeply unsettled her, dredging up fears she had just begun to overcome. Her usual vibrant and playful demeanor had been overshadowed by an aura of uncertainty and apprehension. The light in her eyes seemed dimmed, a stark contrast to the spirited child she had been. One particularly quiet evening, after a dinner that felt unusually subdued, James decided to address the emotional undercurrents directly. He found Lily curled up on the couch, engrossed in a book but distant, her attention scattered. James sat beside her, his heart aching at the sight of her subdued and introspective mood. He understood that the confrontation had taken an emotional toll on her, and he wanted to offer comfort and reassurance. The weight of his concern was palpable as he reached out to her, ready to provide the emotional support she needed during this challenging time. "Hey, Lily," James said softly, trying to gently catch her gaze. "Do you want to talk about what happened?" Lily looked up at him, her eyes reflecting a mix of uncertainty and longing. She slowly closed her book and shifted closer to him, seeking solace in his comforting presence. "Is he gone, Dad?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Is he going to come back?" James wrapped his arm around her, drawing her into a protective embrace. "He's gone, sweetheart," he reassured her, his voice steady and warm. "I'm doing everything I can to make sure he doesn't come near us again. You are safe here, I promise you." Lily nodded, but the apprehension in her eyes lingered, casting a shadow over her expression. "I'm scared," she admitted, her voice barely a whisper, a fragile thread of fear woven into her words. "What if he tries to take me away?" The thought of that made James's heart clench with a surge of anger and protective instinct. Yet he managed to keep his tone calm and soothing. "That's not going to happen," he said firmly, wrapping her even tighter in his embrace. "I won't let him, and neither will Sarah. We're all in this together, and we will keep you safe, no matter what." Lily gazed up at him, her eyes a mixture of trust and lingering fear, her vulnerability laid bare. "Will things ever be normal again?" she asked, her voice filled with a yearning for stability. James gently brushed a stray lock of hair from her face, his heart aching with empathy and determination. "Normal might look a bit different from now on," he said softly, "but we'll find a new kind of normal. One where you feel safe, loved, and cherished every single day." They stayed there together for a while, wrapped in the quiet cocoon of their shared moment. James held Lily close, offering her comfort through both his words and his silence, his presence a steady anchor in the storm. In that intimate and peaceful moment, he found a renewed sense of purpose and resolve. He was determined to do whatever it took to rebuild their lives and create a sanctuary of safety and happiness for his daughter. As the weeks unfolded, the oppressive tension that had hung over them slowly began to lift. The security measures James had implemented brought a reassuring sense of safety to their home, and Lily's demeanor started to shift. Her laughter, once silenced by fear, began to return, a sign of her gradual healing. She even began to rekindle her interest in her favorite activities, like painting and playing with her dolls, small yet significant steps toward reclaiming her joy. If you're still tuned into this video and find the story inspiring, drop a 4 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. James remained vigilant, ever watchful, and committed to their safety. However, he made a concerted effort to balance his vigilance with moments of joy and relaxation for his family. He planned small, uplifting outings, such as picnics in the park and cozy movie nights, to help Lily rediscover the happiness that had been overshadowed by recent events. These moments of connection and joy were crucial in helping them navigate their way back to a place of emotional equilibrium and peace. One radiant afternoon, as sunlight dappled through the trees in the park, Lily's eyes sparkled with an infectious excitement as she tugged at James' sleeve. "Dad, look. The ducks are swimming in the pond," she exclaimed with unrestrained joy. "Can we feed them?" James looked at her, his heart swelling with profound relief at the sight of her genuine excitement. The pure delight on her face was a balm to his soul, a sign that she was beginning to reclaim her happiness. "Of course, sweetheart," James replied with a warm smile. "Let's go feed the ducks." As they strolled towards the pond, Lily chattered animatedly, her earlier fears momentarily forgotten amidst the simple pleasure of feeding the ducks. Her laughter, like a sweet melody, filled the air and tugged at James' heartstrings. He felt a deep sense of gratitude for these precious moments when he could witness his daughter's carefree spirit returning. They were small but significant victories in their journey toward healing. The future still held its share of uncertainties, but James was steadfast in his resolve to face it with bravery and hope. He understood that challenges would inevitably arise, but he took comfort in the strength of his family and the boundless love they shared. Together, they would confront whatever lay ahead, drawing solace from their unity and strength from their deep, unbreakable bond. "Love," James said softly, his gaze steady and reassuring. "We're a family now, and we're going to stay together. No one is going to keep you away from us." Lily looked between James and Sarah, her eyes seeking the assurance they offered. Seeing the unwavering determination and unconditional love in their expressions, she seemed to relax, her body's tension slowly melting away. "Okay," she whispered, leaning into their embrace. "I believe you." They remained huddled together on the couch for a long time, finding strength in the warmth and presence of each other. James felt a deep and fierce protectiveness swell within him. This was his family, and he was resolute in his commitment to keeping them safe, no matter the cost. The next morning, James took decisive steps to fortify their security. He met with their lawyer, who reassured him that the restraining order would be processed promptly. Although it wasn't a perfect shield, it was another layer of protection, a measure to keep the threat at bay. James also arranged for Sarah and Lily to have a panic button app installed on their phones, providing them with a direct and immediate line to the police if they ever felt endangered. It was a small but meaningful comfort, helping to alleviate the pervasive anxiety that had settled over them like a dense, heavy fog. As the days turned into weeks, the oppressive tension gradually began to ease. The ominous figure who had cast a shadow over their lives did not return, and the security measures James had implemented seemed to be effective. Slowly but surely, Lily began to regain her confidence. Her laughter, once stifled by fear, started to emerge again, a sign that she was finding her way back to a sense of normalcy and security. One serene evening, after tucking Lily into bed, James and Sarah found solace on the balcony, their gaze fixed on the city lights shimmering in the distance. The cool evening air carried the promise of a new season, a fresh start full of potential. "I think she's starting to feel safe again," Sarah said softly, her hand resting gently on James' knee. "You've done so much to protect us, James. I don't know how to thank you." James shook his head, his eyes lingering on the distant skyline. "You don't need to thank me, Sarah. I'm just doing what needs to be done, what any father would do." Sarah smiled, leaning her head on his shoulder, her voice tinged with gratitude and affection. "Not every father would go to these lengths. You've given Lily a sense of security she's never known before, and you've restored something I thought I had lost a long time ago, hope." In that quiet, intimate moment, the weight of their shared struggles and the promise of a hopeful future felt tangible. Together, they had weathered the storm and emerged stronger, ready to embrace the new beginnings that awaited them. James turned to Sarah, his gaze filled with deep emotion. "We've given each other hope," he said, his voice choked with feeling. "What I've found with you and Lily is something I never thought I'd have: a true family, a real purpose. I'm not going to let anything take that away from us." They sat together in the dim light of the evening, the weight of their shared journey palpable between them. It hadn't been easy. The path had been fraught with fear and uncertainty, but they had navigated through the darkest moments and emerged stronger, bonded by their love and resilience. As the night deepened, they eventually made their way back inside, closing the balcony door behind them. The apartment welcomed them with a sense of warmth and safety, a sanctuary from the world's chaos. James checked the locks one final time, a habit born from the need for security, before joining Sarah in bed. As he lay there, listening to the soft hum of the city outside and the gentle, rhythmic breathing of the two people he cherished most, James felt a profound sense of tranquility. They were safe, they were together, and that was all that mattered. Whatever the future held, They would face it as a united family, and this certainty gave him the strength to release the remaining fears and uncertainties. They had navigated through the darkness, and now they were stepping into a new dawn. In this light, they would build a future filled with love, security, and the unbreakable bonds of a family that had fought valiantly to stay together. The weeks that followed brought a gradual return to normalcy. The intense fear that had once gripped James, Sarah, and Lily began to fade, replaced by a cautious optimism. The man who had threatened their peace had not reappeared, and each passing day reinforced their belief in his absence. Yet they knew that safety wasn't merely about the absence of danger, it was about rebuilding the connections that had been strained and tested. Lily, who had been deeply unsettled by the confrontation, was slowly reclaiming her joyful spirit. Her nightmares, once frequent and vivid, began to lessen, and her laughter, a cherished sound, was starting to fill their home once more. James and Sarah noticed these changes with gratitude, but they understood that Lily still needed reassurance. Her world had been upheaved repeatedly, and it would take time for her to fully trust in the stability they were striving to provide. One Saturday morning, James decided to do something special for Lily and Sarah, something to reinforce the sense of family they were working to build. He rose early, prepared a hearty breakfast, and then proposed a day out, just the three of them, away from the city's hustle, to a place where they could relax and enjoy each other's company. "There's a park I used to visit when I was younger," James said, as they gathered around the kitchen table, the aroma of pancakes and syrup mingling in the air. "It's got vast open spaces, a serene lake, and plenty of room to run around. I thought we could pack a picnic and spend the day there." Lily's eyes sparkled with delight at the idea. "Can we bring a kite? I've never flown a kite before." James's heart warmed at the sight of her enthusiasm. "Of course, we'll pick one up on the way." As they prepared for the day out, James felt a sense of anticipation and joy. He was eager to see Lily's laughter and Sarah's smile, to create new memories that would help mend the wounds of the past. The picnic in the park was more than just an outing, it was a step towards healing, a chance to reinforce the love and connection that bound them together. In those moments of simple, shared happiness, they found strength and hope, rebuilding their family's foundation one joyful experience at a time. Sarah reached across the table and gently squeezed James' hand, her eyes reflecting warmth and appreciation. "That sounds perfect, James. We could all use a day like that, especially after everything we've been through." The morning was a flurry of activity as they prepared for their outing. James and Sarah packed a basket full of sandwiches, fresh fruit, and an assortment of treats. James could almost feel the atmosphere in their apartment shifting as they busied themselves with the preparations. The heavy tension that had loomed over them for so long was gradually lifting, replaced by a sense of lightness and anticipation that he hadn't experienced in years. As they drove to the park, the car was filled with an air of joyous excitement and lively conversation. Lily, in the back seat, chatted incessantly about all the adventures she hoped to have, flying the kite, exploring the nature trails, and perhaps even dipping her toes in the lake if the water was warm enough. James listened with a heart full of happiness, frequently glancing at Sarah, who was observing their daughter with a serene and contented smile. For the first time in a long while, everything felt wonderfully normal, better than normal. It felt perfectly right. When they finally arrived at the park, James was pleasantly surprised by how little it had changed since his last visit. The tall trees still gracefully lined the pathways, their leaves whispering secrets to the gentle breeze. The lake glistened under the sun, its surface calm and inviting, while the vast, open fields offered ample space for running, playing, and of course flying kites. They found a tranquil spot near the lake, spreading out a cozy blanket and arranging their picnic. Lily eagerly unwrapped the kite they had bought on the way. It was a vibrant spectacle of colors with long, fluttering tails that danced in the wind. She could hardly contain her excitement as James prepared the kite for flight. "Okay, Lily, here's how we do it," James instructed, holding the kite while Lily stood a few feet away, gripping the string tightly. "You're going to start running, and when I say so, you let go of the kite and keep running. The wind will help it soar." Lily's face was a study of concentration as she nodded eagerly. "I'm ready." "All right," James said, his excitement building. "Go." Lily dashed forward, her small legs moving as fast as they could. James let the kite go, and it leaped into the air, its tail streaming behind it like a rainbow. Lily glanced over her shoulder, her face lighting up with a radiant grin as she watched the kite climb higher and higher. "It's flying, Dad. It's flying," she exclaimed, her voice filled with unbridled joy. James jogged beside her, laughing as he watched her skillfully manage the kite string. Sarah joined them, clapping and cheering with delight as Lily deftly guided the kite through the sky, showcasing a surprising talent for her first attempt. They spent countless hours in the park, playing games, exploring trails, and basking in the day's beauty. They strolled along the lake's edge, their feet grazing the cool, soothing water, and engaged in light-hearted conversations about everything and nothing. The day was filled with simple pleasures, but for James, it was one of the most meaningful and profound experiences he had ever known. In those moments of shared laughter and togetherness, the past seemed to fade, replaced by a renewed sense of hope and connection. They were building something beautiful together, a sanctuary of love and joy that would carry them through whatever challenges lay ahead. Detective Reynolds' voice was steady but carried an undertone of urgency. "I'm afraid it's about the man who threatened your family. We've received some new information that requires your immediate attention." James' heart raced as he struggled to remain composed. "What kind of information?" "There's been a development regarding his whereabouts. He's been spotted in the area, and we need to discuss how this affects your situation." James' mind whirled with concern as he looked around the office, the documents before him now feeling insignificant. "When can we meet?" We're setting up a meeting for this afternoon. I'll send you the details shortly." The call ended, and James took a deep breath, trying to calm the surge of anxiety coursing through him. He knew he had to stay strong for Sarah and Lily, but the thought of their safety being threatened again was almost unbearable. He quickly packed up his things and left the office, his thoughts focused on the impending meeting with Detective Reynolds. He needed to make sure he was prepared to protect his family, no matter what the new information revealed. Back at home, Sarah and Lily were enjoying a quiet afternoon. James walked through the door, his face a mask of concern that Sarah immediately noticed. "What's wrong?" she asked, her eyes searching his. "There's been a new development," James said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Detective Reynolds needs to meet with me about the man who threatened us." Sarah's face paled slightly. "What's going on?" "I don't know yet, but it's important. I need to go meet with him now." Sarah nodded, her worry is evident but her support unwavering. "Be careful, James. Let me know as soon as you can." If you're still tuned into this video and find the story inspiring, drop a 5 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. James left for the meeting with a heavy heart. The sense of security they had fought so hard to build felt fragile now, and he couldn't shake the fear that the past was once again intruding on their lives. When he arrived at the precinct, Detective Reynolds greeted him and led him to a small, windowless room where they could speak privately. The detective's demeanor was serious, and James felt a chill run down his spine as he took a seat. "We've received reports that the man has been seen in the vicinity," Detective Reynolds began. "There have been sightings of him near your neighborhood. We're currently tracking his movements and are working to determine his intentions." James felt his anxiety mount. "What does this mean for us? Are we in immediate danger?" "We're taking measures to ensure his presence does not escalate into a threat," the detective assured him. "We've increased patrols in your area and are working to secure the restraining order. However, you must stay vigilant and continue with the precautions we discussed." James nodded, his mind racing with questions and fears. "What should we do in the meantime?" "Continue to follow the safety measures we've put in place. Keep the panic button app active and remain alert. We'll keep you updated with any new information. In the meantime, if you notice anything unusual or if you feel unsafe, contact us immediately." James thanked Detective Reynolds and left the precinct, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts. He knew he had to remain strong for Sarah and Lily, but the knowledge that their safety was once again at risk was a heavy burden to bear. When he returned home, he found Sarah waiting anxiously. He quickly relayed the details of the meeting, trying to offer reassurance despite his fears. "We're not alone in this," James said firmly. "The police are doing everything they can, and we've taken all the necessary precautions. We just have to stay alert and trust that things will work out." Sarah took his hand, her eyes reflecting both worry and resolve. "We've faced so much together already. We can get through this too." That night, as they prepared for bed, James felt a familiar sense of unease. The tranquility they had begun to enjoy felt like it was slipping away. Yet, he also felt a renewed determination to protect his family at all costs. As he lay beside Sarah, the darkened room around them felt like a cocoon, a small sanctuary amid the uncertainty. They had come through so much, and though the challenges were far from over, James knew that they had each other, and that was their greatest strength. Together they would face whatever came next, drawing on the love and resilience that had seen them through so many trials already. Sarah hugged James tightly, her tears soaking into his shirt. "I know. I just wish things were different." James stroked her hair gently, his own eyes stinging with unshed tears. "Me too. But we'll get through this. We're strong together, and we have to keep believing that." They quickly made plans to pack up their essentials and prepare for the move to James's father's house. Despite the urgency, they worked together calmly, focusing on the immediate tasks at hand. Lily was still at school, so they had time to get everything in order before picking her up and explaining the situation. James made a few phone calls to arrange the move, ensuring that their new temporary home would be ready for them. As he worked, he could hear Sarah's muffled sobs from the other room. The stress and fear were taking their toll, but James tried to stay focused, knowing that their priority was Lily's safety and well-being. When Lily came home, James and Sarah sat her down to explain the situation as gently as possible. They reassured her that they were taking steps to ensure her safety and that this move was just a precaution. Lily, sensing the gravity of the situation, looked worried but trusted her parents' reassurances. "Will we come back here soon?" she asked, her voice small and anxious. James knelt at her level, trying to offer a comforting smile. "We'll come back as soon as it's safe, sweetie. For now, we're going to stay at Grandpa's house, and we'll make sure to have lots of fun while we're there." Lily nodded, though her eyes were still troubled. Sarah packed a few of Lily's favorite toys and comfort items, trying to make the transition as smooth as possible. By the time evening arrived, their apartment was packed up, and they were ready to leave. James looked around one last time, feeling a pang of sadness as he left behind the home they had worked so hard to create. But he knew it was only temporary. Their family's safety came first, and he was determined to ensure they remained protected. They drove to James's father's house, a quiet and serene place situated in the countryside. The transition from the bustling city to the peaceful surroundings offered a brief respite from the anxiety that had plagued them. As they arrived and settled into the house, James felt a flicker of relief. They were away from immediate danger, and the surroundings were calm and reassuring. The days at James's father's house were marked by a blend of vigilance and normalcy. The police continued their monitoring, and James and Sarah worked to keep Lily's spirits high. They explored the nearby countryside, played games, and enjoyed simple pleasures like picnics and nature walks. The change in scenery and the emphasis on family time provided some comfort, even as the shadow of the threat loomed over them. James and Sarah remained in constant contact with Detective Reynolds, staying updated on any new developments regarding the man who had threatened them. The detective's updates were reassuring, but also served as a reminder of the danger still present. One evening, as they sat on the porch of James's father's house, enjoying the peaceful view of the rolling hills, Sarah turned to James, her expression thoughtful. "I know we're still dealing with so much, but I want you to know how much I appreciate everything you're doing. For us, for Lily. You're doing everything you can to keep us safe." James took her hand, his heart swelling with gratitude and love. "I couldn't do it without you, Sarah. We're in this together, and we'll get through it together." They shared a quiet moment of connection, their love, and determination to protect their family strengthening them amidst the uncertainty. Despite the challenges they faced, their bond remained unbreakable, and they were more committed than ever to building a future where they could finally find peace and security. As they continued to navigate the difficulties ahead, James took comfort in the knowledge that their family was resilient and that their love for each other was a powerful force in overcoming the obstacles that came their way. For the next hour, their movements were a blur of swift, purposeful action as they packed their lives into suitcases and boxes with a sense of urgency that left little room for error. Each item was carefully chosen, every piece of clothing folded with precision, driven by the unspoken understanding that they needed to move quickly. To shield Lily from the harsh reality of their situation, they spun the sudden trip into an exhilarating adventure, a visit to Grandpa's house that promised new sights and thrilling experiences. Lily's face lit up with joy at the thought, her worries momentarily swept away by the allure of the unknown. As they loaded the car with the last of their belongings, James cast one lingering, bittersweet glance back at their apartment building, a structure that had been more than just dwelling. It was their sanctuary, their bastion of solace amidst the chaos of life. The mere thought of leaving it, even if just temporarily, gripped him with a profound and aching sadness. Yet, he knew they had no alternative. Their only choice was to press forward, to safeguard the fruits of their relentless struggle. The drive to his father's estate was marked by a profound, almost oppressive silence, the weight of their predicament hanging over them like an ominous storm cloud. The journey seemed interminable, each mile stretching out like a reminder of the peril they faced. Sarah reached over and clasped James's hand, her touch a small but potent source of comfort amidst the tension. Her eyes met his with a warm, reassuring smile, and her voice, though soft, carried an undercurrent of unwavering hope. "We're going to be okay," she said, her words a gentle balm against the anxiety. "We'll get through this, together." James's response was a determined nod, his hand squeezing hers with a strength that spoke of their shared resolve. "We will. We just need to stay strong for Lily. She's depending on us." When they finally arrived at the sprawling estate, James's father was there to welcome them, his presence a testament to the seriousness with which he had taken their situation. He had already taken significant steps to fortify the property, arranging for heightened security to ensure their safety. As they drove up to the majestic house, James felt a complex swirl of emotions, relief mingled with a lingering sense of apprehension. The estate, with its grand architecture and imposing walls, offered a sanctuary where they could finally pause and regroup. Lily, undeterred by the gravity of their situation, dashed ahead with boundless enthusiasm, eager to explore the vast gardens and endless nooks of the estate. James and Sarah, meanwhile, worked side by side to unload the car, their movements a quiet testament to their shared determination. James's father approached them, his face etched with concern but his demeanor resolute. "I've ensured that everything is secure," he said, his voice steady and reassuring. "You're safe here. Take all the time you need to settle in." A wave of gratitude washed over James, his heart swelling with appreciation. "Thank you," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. "I wasn't certain we'd need to lean on you like this, but I'm profoundly grateful that we have this refuge." His father placed a hand on James's shoulder, a rare gesture of emotional support that conveyed a depth of care and solidarity. "Your family, James, will face this challenge together no matter what." As they began to settle into the estate, the oppressive tension that had accompanied them began to ease, replaced by a cautious but palpable sense of security. Lily adapted to her new surroundings with ease, her delight evident as she reveled in the beauty of the gardens and the grandeur of the house. For her, this was an exciting diversion, a thrilling escape from the worries that had recently plagued her. But for James and Sarah, this was a crucial period of reflection and planning. Their evenings were consumed with deep contemplative discussions, as they weighed their options and strategized their next steps. The weight of their predicament loomed large, but amidst the quietude of the estate, they found a moment of respite, a chance to regroup and fortify their resolve for the challenges that lay ahead. James understood that their stay at the estate couldn't be indefinite, but he also knew they couldn't return to their apartment until they were certain the threat had been neutralized. One evening, as they sat together on the terrace, the serene beauty of the sunset casting a warm glow over the gardens, Sarah turned to James, her face reflecting a mix of contemplation and concern. "Do you think it might be time to move? Find a new place where he won't be able to track us?" James pondered her suggestion, the gravity of the decision weighing heavily on him. "It might be the most prudent choice," he conceded, "but I hesitate to uproot Lily again unless necessary. She's already endured so much upheaval." Sarah's voice, tinged with worry, carried the weight of her fears. "I understand that, but I can't bear the thought of us living in perpetual fear. I want Lily to have a semblance of normalcy, to live without the constant shadow of danger looming over her." James let out a deep sigh, reclining in his chair as he wrestled with the dilemma. Perhaps a fresh start in a new place is what we need. Somewhere far from this nightmare, where we can truly begin anew and leave all of this behind. Sarah's expression shifted from concern to a determined resolve. "Then that's what we'll do. We'll find a new home and start over together." As the sky transitioned from a brilliant orange to a velvety deep blue, James felt a renewed sense of determination take root within him. They had faced countless trials and emerged stronger each time. This was merely another hurdle to overcome. "We will get through this," James affirmed, his voice firm and resolute. "And when we do, we'll create something even more beautiful, a new home, a new life, where we can finally find peace." Sarah leaned her head on his shoulder, her smile a beacon of shared hope. "I believe in that, James. We've come so far and overcome so much. Nothing will tear us apart now." As the night deepened and the stars began to sprinkle the sky, James felt a profound sense of tranquility envelop him. The past had cast its shadow over them, but they were no longer the same people they had been before. They had grown stronger, more resilient, and united in their resolve. Together, they could confront whatever challenges lay ahead. They had navigated through the darkness before and emerged into the light, and this time would be no different. With that thought, James knew they were going to be all right. Regardless of what the past tried to hurl at them, they would face it together, stronger and more determined than ever. The decision to move marked the beginning of a transformative new chapter in their lives. After weeks of diligent searching and countless viewings, James and Sarah finally found a house in a serene, picturesque neighborhood just outside the city. It felt like a breath of fresh air, a beacon of hope and renewal. The new home, with its expansive layout and inviting warmth, provided a large yard where Lily could run freely and play to her heart's content. It wasn't merely a house, it stood as a powerful testament to their resilience, their unwavering commitment to each other, and their dedication to providing a secure and happy environment for their daughter. If you're still tuned into this video and find the story inspiring, drop a 6 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. As they unpacked their belongings and began to make the new house their own, the dark shadows of their past began to recede. The echoes of fear and uncertainty that had once loomed so large started to fade, replaced by the vibrant joy of new beginnings and the comforting embrace of a safe, secure home. Lily blossomed in this nurturing new setting. Her laughter and playful shouts filled the rooms, her excitement palpable as she explored every nook and cranny of their new abode. James and Sarah reveled in the simplicity and peace of their new life, their focus shifting towards cherishing the happiness and security they had fought so hard to achieve. Reflecting on their journey, James was struck by how far they had come and how profoundly they had grown. The trials they had endured had tested their limits in ways they could never have anticipated. Yet they emerged from those trials stronger, more unified, and more deeply connected. They had built a life together, one rich in love, hope, and the promise of a brighter future. Standing together in their new home, watching Lily play joyfully in the yard, James felt a deep, abiding sense of gratitude. They had faced their fears head-on and conquered them, and now they stood ready to embrace whatever the future held. The past has imparted invaluable lessons about love, resilience, and the irreplaceable importance of family. As they looked forward to the days to come, they knew that no matter what challenges might arise, they would face them with the same strength and courage that had carried them through their darkest moments. Their new life was a profound testament to their enduring love and steadfast commitment to one another. They had transformed their trials into triumphs and turned their fears into a beacon of hope. And as they continued their journey, they did so with the certainty that they had created something truly extraordinary, a life that was forged from struggle, sacrifice, and unwavering belief. James turned to Sarah, his heart overflowing with love and appreciation. "We did it," he said softly, his voice choked with emotion. "We made it through." Sarah's eyes sparkled with joy as she smiled at him. "Yes, we did, and we're stronger for it." Together, they stood side by side, watching the sun set over their new home, their hearts filled with anticipation and resolve. Whatever challenges the future might bring, they would face them with the same determination and unity that had guided them this far. They had built a new life, one brimming with hope, love, and boundless possibilities. As we wrap up this journey, let's take a moment to reflect on the incredible story of James, Sarah, and Lily, a family who faced overwhelming challenges and emerged stronger through their unity, resilience, and unwavering commitment to one another. Their story reminds us that even in the darkest times, there is hope, and that every obstacle can be transformed into a stepping stone towards a brighter future. So what have you learned from their journey? How have their experiences touched your heart? And what lessons can you bring into your own life? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please share one key takeaway from this story and how you plan to apply it in your own life in the comments below. If you found this video inspiring, please leave your comment, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more stories and insights. Your support means the world to us and helps us continue to bring meaningful content to you. Thank you for watching, and remember, no matter what challenges you face, you have the strength to overcome them. Stay strong, stay hopeful, and keep moving forward.